All right. Well, I think we're going to get started. First of all, thanks for joining us, everybody. And again, Bob Coppage, CEO of Simplex-IT, and you've also got Patty Smirk, who is the Sales and Marketing Director here at Simplex-IT. And what we decided to do for this one, webinar, was really just talk about what our experiences and some of the things here at Simplex-IT that we use Teams for in terms of productivity improvements. I want to stress something. This is not a sales pitch. And nor is this something that we're going to go through really polished examples and all that kind of fun stuff. We're just going to show you what works for us. And we'll give you some ideas. And really, we're talking about productivity. We're talking about collaboration and working both within an organization and externally to an organization, because you can do that with Teams as well. For the first 30 minutes, which the clock just kicked off about 2 minutes ago, it's going to be your traditional presentation. We're going to do demos. We're going to do talking about it, but for the most part, it's going to be us, pardon my French, saying on to you. The microphones are muted, but feel free to put stuff in the chat if you have any questions or comments. But then at the end of the 30 minutes, we'll open the mics up and basically would love to get some feedback, whether it be additional questions or tell us what works for you. And again, we will be broadcast or posting publicly the first 30 minutes, but at the end of that, we will not be posting the second 30 minutes because that's just for us. So with that, let's see where we go from here. So we want to just talk about Teams as far as how it can help your organization. And one of the first things is we want to talk about that Teams is by and large included with most Microsoft 365 subscriptions. And it can be run as an app, it can be run on your device, it can be run through the web, it can also be run fairly effectively on mobile devices. Although obviously, like everything else, you start losing some of the functionality, pardon my French, dumber the device is. So there's some things you can definitely do both from a real estate standpoint on a laptop or a desktop that you can't do on a mobile device, and a couple things vice versa, but not really for the most part. It is, if not the cornerstone, it's close to the cornerstone of Microsoft's collaboration strategy. When I say that with a little bit of grit teeth, because really what's happening is that the data that is in Teams is really being stored for all purposes in a combination of SharePoint and OneDrive. Okay, so when you talk, especially if we have to talk about backing up or restoring data from a Teams, it gets a little bit convoluted because to a certain degree, Teams is really just a front-end application. And I'm going to talk about this from really 2 or 3 different perspectives. One perspective is going to be, I want to talk to the internal IT folks, because part of your challenge is to really help bring value, make IT more productive for your organization. And if you watch us on LinkedIn, you know that we're putting videos every day, every business day, and on Thursdays I do a series called, how to MSP-proof your job. And one of the best ways you can do that is by taking a look at tools like Teams, where there's no entry cost in terms of getting the application, but then looking at your organization and say, hey, I know we do this, but boy, we could do it so much better if we just use this technology which we already own. Now, there's challenges to that as far as getting buy-in, as far as getting people to do. We'll talk about that a little bit, and I'd love to hear some feedback from you guys as far as what works best as well. But the other aspect is from a CEO standpoint, or anybody really who's working from a business standpoint. When you see a business process that creates or that has a lot of, I'll call it friction. And by friction, what I mean by that is that there's a lot of effort, a lot of time, a lot of energy that goes into it that doesn't really matter to the end result. And where tools like Teams or Zoom, for that matter, can actually really add some additional value to you guys. And the nice thing is here is that Teams can do so much more than Zoom. The bad news is that it therefore has all these more options, but if you really start taking a look at it from a collaborative tool and engine and all that kind of fun stuff, there's some really cool stuff that you can do, and it's fairly easy to make it work. So with that. The three most common uses for Teams, the ones that seem to get all that, when your favorite tool is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, is we use it for chat, usually internally. We'll talk about how to get around that. We use it as a Zoom alternative, just to do video meetings, and that's it. And we use it for file sharing. And all three things are extremely great, and they're very productive, and they're very great to use, but there's so much more you can do with that really end up using the cornerstones of these three technologies, but in ways that you can go a little further. And that's and again, any questions or anything like that, just put them in the chat for right now. Now, a couple of things about Teams. One, and this is the biggie, your data, your Microsoft 365, and I mean all Microsoft 365 data, your emails, your SharePoint data, your OneDrive data, your Teams data, all of that is not backed up by Microsoft. It is backed up to the level necessary where if one of their servers goes down that contains your data, they have another server that can bring it back up, but that's it. So your traditional backups, all of that kind of fun stuff, when stuff gets deleted and nuked and all of that, and I'm exaggerating a little bit and I'll explain it in a second, but Microsoft is not backing that data up. Now, if you delete files, they stay on SharePoint or OneDrive or Exchange for a set period of days, depending upon a retention policy and the like, but they will ultimately go bye-bye. And if you get hit by a malware attack, some of the malware attacks will actually encrypt your 365 data, depending upon where the compromise happens. It will happily encrypt your data all the way across. So make sure, especially if you start implementing any of these Teams or other strategies that really make 365 data a cornerstone, you pay as much attention to your 365 backup offerings as you do for your server backups, cloud backups, all of that kind of fun stuff. It is at least as important. So if you are interested, yes, we have solutions. We particularly like Barracuda, but there's a number of other ones as well. That's as much of a sales pitch as we're going to get. The second is that a phone number, in other words, a phone number for people to call and join in on the audio part of the meeting, is not included by the default Teams subscription. I think it's a $4 a month more subscription cost that will actually include a phone number for people to call in. Now, if people have mobile devices, they can use the mobile device to run Teams, in which case they don't need a phone number. But if you have a situation where someone actually wants to call in on an audio line to listen to that, you need that additional line, that additional subscription. So I wanted to keep that in mind. 5 real simple things. And they are really, one is, how do we get external people? So we use Teams to collaborate not only internal to Simplex-IT, but we also try to get people to actually participate in our Teams meetings and events and conversations that are appropriate. Now, that's not to say what's happening right now is a team meeting. And actually, that's probably a good moment for me to give a quick demo. So here's basically what we have as far as our team site goes. And what we've done is we've created, wait for it, teams that are essentially collections of people who are within our organization that have access to these teams. Thank you, Microsoft, for creating teams in Teams so we can work together with Teams. This is the actual application that is running. And we can then create memberships, and we can make them open so that anybody who has access to our organization can join. We can make them so it's very specific. We can use groups. We can do whatever. So people who have access to these then can see all of the stuff that goes on. So I created a very simple team called Temp. And you'll notice here, and again, I'm not going to go too much into this, is that we have these tabs up here, which is here's where the chat goes. And I can just go in and create conversations. And the conversations will be visible to other people using Teams who are who have access to this team. I can also, and we'll get into how this is meaningful and useful, we can also have files. By default, there's a wiki, which is kind of an intelligent sort of web page that you can use for searching and the like, as well as a whole bunch of other stuff. So we can create teams that are based on roles within the organization. We can create teams based on departments. We can create teams based on projects. We can create temporary teams, teams that are only going to be around for one particular project or the like. We can get pretty creative here. And I recommend that you do. So if you have an organization that you're trying to make teams your core, one of the things that you do is you follow very straight, very simple. You create one for the entire organization. You create one for each department. You create one for specialty teams or roles. And you create ones that are for specific projects. And for each one of those, you limit the membership to only those people who are involved in those organizations. Now, you may think you've seen something like that before, and you probably have if you ever look at your computer as far as File Explorer. Because you see it where we have folders for departments, we have folders for projects, we have folders for individuals. We have all of that here as well. And by just going here to Teams, I can navigate and see any of these, but only the ones that I have access to. Similarly, I can go and create chats anytime I want to with individuals, whether it be a single individual or multiple individuals. But one of the things that we often forget is how to use external members. And to do that, we have to be set up in our organization. And I'm going to show you a screenshot here. So you go into, and someone with administrative credentials needs to do this for your organization. Oh, so much for my trying to hide people's names. But anyway, so that's too late. I'll wipe that out in recording. But we basically have to go under external access, and we essentially want to say users can communicate with other Skype for Business and Teams, and users can communicate with Skype users. We just set those two things on, and that gives us the ability to invite people from these specific organizations, if we want to control it that way, to actually participate in our Teams environment. Now, keep in mind, right now what's happening is we're just doing a Teams meeting, and we're recording it. So there's nothing actually being stored, with a very critical exception, and we'll talk about that. There's nothing actually being recorded or stored in our secure area. So we don't care, we love you all dearly, but you don't have any access to our actual Teams organization. If you're a client and you're working with us on projects, we want that organization or those individuals to have access to it so that we can collaborate with them just as easily, almost, just as easily as we can with our own employees. So this is a great way for you to create a collaborative environment that goes beyond the borders of your organization. So if you have a project where you're working with 3 other companies, you simply add those 3 companies to your allowed groups. You invite them to participate. You add them. You create a team for that project, and you add both your employees and invite their employees to participate. And you do that, and everybody wins. Everybody has access to the files. Everybody can use these in a collaborative method. So they can actually be working on files at the same time you are, so on and so forth. Now, your clients or vendors or whomever you're inviting have to be able to, to use Teams, be willing to, and all of that kind of fun stuff. And they have to have some kind of credentials that Microsoft will accept, which makes sense because otherwise, how do we know they're them? But it's pretty straightforward. And once you set that up for one company, it's really easy to set up for others. So that's one of the things that I think is tremendously undervalued and underutilized, even by us. We don't use it as much as we should. So that's one thing to use as far as Teams. That was the first thing I wanted to go over. The second thing I wanted to show was the tabs. And one of the things that we like to do, you'll notice I put files here, is you can create additional tabs here. And so one thing that we'll do is we'll actually make an Excel form a tab. And this is something that we were doing. We did an April Fool's video where everybody gave bad security advice. So we had a worksheet. And this time when someone's in this team, they can actually just go over to this Excel. So I can say something along the lines of add your ideas for bad security advice in the Excel worksheet. And I can also rename this and all of that. But all the person has to do then is just go here and they can work on the worksheet directly and collaborate. Patty, do you want to add something? And you can see not only that Patty is where I can actually see where she's editing it. So this is a way to actually bring to the forefront something that you want people to be working on in a collaborative way. They can still just do it by going over, you'll notice the file had to be in Teams to start with. They could also just go here and open it, whether it be the browser, the app, or in Teams. But this way brings it a little bit to the forefront. And you can have as many of those up there as you want to. So if you've got something that can be as simple as, hey, we're looking for people over the next week or so to give advice or give suggestions for this, or, hey, this is an important thing to everybody to watch, please take a look at this, whatever. By just creating that and putting that up here, and you can get rid of the wiki tab. So we've just got post files, and here's the suggestions. And if you take a look here at the plus, you've got all sorts of options. You can have a specific document library. You can use forms, tasks by Planner. Planner is and Planner integrates very well. Planner is a project management tool. It's a web-based. It's also included with your 365 subscription. So you can actually put Planner as one of the tabs for a particular project or the like. So use these additional tabs, and you don't have to have them up there all the time. If this is something we just want people to go and take a look at, and then when you're done, you remove the tab, you keep the file there. So you're basically showing a focus, if you will. And as you can see, it's very easy to do. Okay? You can see you have video documents, you can have websites, you can use whiteboard, Word. There's a ton of these out here, and they all work roughly the same way. It'll bring that to the forefront, so there's a tab there for people to actually work on and collaborate with. They don't have to know to open this file or look at that. They just need to know, go to Teams, look for the tab, work with the tab. And I'll show you a couple examples of what we're doing as we go through this. So that's the second. Temporary and project teams. We kind of already talked about this, but have the flexibility of creating temporary or project teams, but absolutely, absolutely take advantage of that. Because the ability to create a team is really hard. You can just create a team. And if you've already got a group or a team already created, you can start with that. You can put together from a project template or an event. You can onboard, adopt. So they have all these templates already here for you to use. But if we go just from scratch, you can basically make it a private or it's public. And again, when we say public, anybody from within your organization can join. Okay, so we're not making it public to the external world. Give it a name. Team 3. Over the world. I want to create it. That was hard work, but it was nice work. And I can start adding members within my organization. So if I add Patty again, and I can actually make her owner or member, done. So it is that simple. It is that easy. And when we're done, I can remove the team just as easily. So don't be afraid to create again, it kind of gets back to when we were talking about creating teams. We can create these teams to start with. Here are the teams we're going to keep around. One for the organization, one for each department, one for some of the vertical layers, management, whatever, and special needs. And then we'll make our special projects. And we'll build a template this is what we're going to follow. And then you just create them and then archive them and remove them when we're done with them. Okay? And this way, especially if you understand the collaboration piece, this way you've got a standard. Everybody knows, and you can basically give everybody the ability to create their own teams. And again, if you're the internal IT person, you can kind of manage it and kind of help them, guide them, and all that kind of fun stuff. And there's a lot of resources out there. And guess what? We have additional resources that will help you in the training of people as well in terms of how to use it. We use a product called Bigger Brains, which includes a bunch of online courses for using Teams for the end user as well as the administrator and the like, as well as using all of the Office tools, about 170 courses or like. Again, not a sales pitch, but we've got that ability. And by the way, Bigger Brains can be a tab in Teams. So we've got all that stuff available as well. So record and share meetings. This is one that I don't think we use enough. And this is one of those where if you have, let's say, for example, we've got a number of clients that have Salesforce. And by that, they have not the product Salesforce, but they have a number of people in the sales departments. And so they will have regular sales meetings. Well, not everyone can make them. Fine, record them. Record them and then share them to the people who were not able to make the meeting. And there's a couple ways you can actually share them. We'll talk about that when we talk about the learninars thing that we've done. But essentially, you can go ahead and record your meetings and then use them as both a way to reinforce what you've done or what's been going on, but also to educate the people who weren't able to make it. And if you recall, I shouldn't say if you recall, but we've all been in that situation where somebody says, oh, you talked about that at last week's meeting. I wasn't able to make that one. Well, were you able to watch it? Because it was recorded. And so by basically saying, we're going to record these meetings and then make them available to the people who should have been there, either from the standpoint of because they weren't able to make it, or they were, but they want a refresher. Because we all want to watch these meetings more than once. This gives you the opportunity to have a standard. So there's a standard message, there's a standard voice, there's standard requirements, standard expectations, but you're being reasonable where if someone can't legitimately make it, you're giving them a way to revisit it. Or someone did make it, but they missed a point or they missed something. Let's go. And so one of the things that you can also do is you can basically say, when you're doing this meeting, share a screen where someone's taking the notes so that everybody sees the notes that are being taken and can say, oh, okay, yeah, I get that. Can you put that in a different way? That should also include blah, blah, blah. Whether you can use the whiteboard so everybody participates. So there's all sorts of ways you can share screen, share resources and the like. And which really gets us back to the next thing, or gets us to the next item, which is what we call learninars. This has actually worked out really well for us. And what a learninar is we need to share knowledge as we develop best practices, as we develop tools, we develop a different way of doing things, whatever. Well, we've got, I think, 10 technicians here, or 12 technicians, I don't keep track. So we've got about 12 technicians here, and there's about 20 of us all told. How do we keep everybody up to date for the new procedures? Well, Documentation, and absolutely, we document thoroughly, and we put the stuff in our documentation portals. It's there, it's available. But sometimes to have just a review, just let me show you, let me do a quick overview, kind of like what we're doing now, is very helpful. So what we come up with is we've come up with what we call learninars. And learninar is where anyone who has something they want to share takes about 15 minutes and does an optional team meeting. And when I say optional, it means you don't have to attend. But if you do, you'll be able to ask questions and the like, and we record that meeting. But then what we do is we then take the recording of that meeting, and I'll show you where it ends up real soon. We then post them on Teams. So we've created a tab in Teams that I haven't gone to for a bit, so it's loading it right now. And of course, this is the one thing I didn't test beforehand. But what will happen is it will then show me the various videos that have been posted. And I can then take a look at them. Let me make sure I put the right one. And yes, it takes a moment or two. But then anyone can watch the videos at their leisure, assuming it loads. Let me see if that works any better. So we can have it some for the specific service department, as well as in the general. And it is taken forever. So, and I apologize for that. But it's a fairly straightforward, and this has actually worked for us really well when it works. So I wanted to basically just take a few minutes and show you these are the 5 things. And as you can see, we're not going through all sorts of deep dives, but by adding external people to your organization, that really gives you the chance to take the collaborative tools from Teams. And by the way, we have not gone into just the traditional collaborative stuff. We certainly can. If when we open it up, people want to see more, we can do that. Add some additional tabs. Aha, it did. So here's some of the learninars that we've done. So we've got 19 videos that we've put up so far. And this has worked really, really well because you always have those meetings where you want everybody to have a chance to see something, but then how do you schedule it so that everybody has a chance to attend? This kind of takes care of that to a good degree. And technically, you could even do a learninar without having a meeting in the first place. Just record it and then put it up in streams. Okay. So again, external members, we've discussed tabs other than file and chat, especially when you just want to have either a web page or Word or a wiki page or a planner page for your projects, anything along those lines where you can really focus stuff on. Creating temporary teams. It is easy to both add and get rid of a team, as well as have a standard core for your organization, which I think is great. Recording and sharing meetings. Externally, like we're doing, this is going to be recorded and sent to me as an MP4 file, which means I can do with it whatever I want to. And by putting it up to Microsoft Stream, I can then push it down into a Teams channel, like what we did, as well as I can post it up on YouTube, I can edit it, I can do whatever I want to on that. Okay, and then this learninar concept has really worked for us as a quick and easy way. It's not a substitute for documentation at all, but it's a real quick and easy way for you to be able to take some of that tribal knowledge that person A is the only one who has it, have them go through something, whatever, show something for 10 or 15 minutes. You just record them doing it, and you share that. And that's a great way for us to try to make it so that we don't have 1 or 2 people who know 90% of everything between that and a combination of documentation. So that's basically it as far as what we were going to be covering. If anybody's interested, again, Simplex-IT, we both are a traditional managed service provider as well as co-managed IT services or COMITs. I've written 3 books. These are the books. Go to this website. Let me know if you want a copy of any of these books. Happy to send them to you. And if you're interested in more information on any of the stuff we've talked about here or any of the other topics. Again, the couple of things particular to this were the make sure you're backing up your Microsoft 365 data, because Microsoft ain't doing it for you unless you're paying extra for it. And then also, if you're looking for some standardized training, online training that's really affordable, as is the backups, quite honestly, we can help you with that with some of the training resources we've got, as well as we can actually do customized training for you as well. And with that, last thing I would say is follow me on LinkedIn, because we are posting a video every single freaking business day on LinkedIn. Some of it has to do with IT from the CEO standpoint. Some of it has to do with IT from the internal IT standpoint. Some of it I have no freaking clue where it's coming from at all. So, and with that, I am going to say goodbye to everybody who's on the recording, but we're basically going to switch to our second portion of the 30 by 30 where we open the mics up for everybody. So with that.